We talk about using ChatGPT all the time to grow your business or your career, but what about traveling? Something I love to do. So let's take a look at it. All right. And before I get into it, let me just tell you quick what this even is. My name's Jordan Wilson, and I am the host of Your Everyday AI. So we are a daily live stream podcast and free daily newsletter, helping everyday people like you and me use AI and ChatGPT to grow their businesses. But today we're going to take a little different look. We're going to talk about how you can use ChatGPT for personal reasons, maybe to take a trip. So shout out to Mary who asked me about this. She said, "Hey, how could I do something like this? How could I use ChatGPT to maybe plan a trip?" So let's jump right into it. I'm going to start, as I sometimes do, kind of at the end. I'm going to give this is our AI in 5 segment. We try to get through things in about 5 minutes. So I'm going to, as ChatGPT is working, I'm going to explain to you what we're doing here. All right. So I do have the paid version of ChatGPT enabled, which is important because we're going to be talking about a couple different plugins. So here's what I did kind of for this new chat. So I just said, please prepare me a 6-day trip to Italy. I have no preferences right now, so please provide a detailed itinerary flying from Chicago, include a variety of places to see, experiences, and restaurants. I don't really like seafood, and I'd like to stay in nicer hotels, but nothing too expensive. Please be detailed in your response. So one thing I always recommend to people, especially if they're new with ChatGPT, is start with something broad. That's very broad, right? I didn't give specific directions. I didn't say use this plugin to look up this restaurant, to look up this city. I said I have no preferences except, don't really like seafood and I want to stay in a nicer hotel, but nothing crazy expensive. So you'll see here, ChatGPT is starting to give me an itinerary. So let's take a look. So you'll see it. It's almost done. It's done now. So it did use still kind of going here. So it used Expedia to look up the hotels. So let me actually now quickly jump over and we're going to talk about the plugins that I actually use for this chat and then we're going to go back into the chat. So you can only use 3 plugins at a time in ChatGPT. So I enabled a couple different travel plugins. So because as you're working in a chat, let's say if you started to plan your itinerary and then you're like, oh, it would be great to look up restaurants, but Expedia doesn't look up restaurants. So as an example, in this chat for travel, I'm using Expedia. I'm using Got to Go, which just is a pretty flexible plugin in terms of things you can look up. And then kind of like I just alluded to, I'm also using OpenTable. So I'm using those 3 different plugins for this chat. So let's go back in and see where ChatGPT is at and kind of show you how we can follow up. So it has a pretty good itinerary here. So what I can do now, it gave me a basic, right? This isn't enough to travel with. So now I'm going to give you an example as I let ChatGPT work of a way that we can use these plugins and get a little more specific with it. So what I'm doing is I said, let's plan out day 3 a little more. Can you please look up potential hotel stays with a plugin? Also, can you please see if there's a reservation available for that day using a plugin? So for day 3, ChatGPT recommended going to Florence and to visit a gallery, to walk around and enjoy this restaurant known for its Tuscan specialties. So in this prompt, I said, can you please see what reservation? So I want a hotel. I also said, I'd like to do something a little adventurous or outdoors. I also said, please include links to book the hotel, links to book the restaurant reservation, and links for other places of interest. So now I'm going from something very broad to something more general. So you could start with something like this. It would take a while, but I like to recommend people to always let ChatGPT start. Don't guide it too much in the beginning, especially if you're, wanting to do something like plan a trip. I said, plan me an itinerary. So it gave me a very diverse group of selections. And I also gave it more suggestions. I said, hey, I'd only like to pay $200 to $400 a night for hotels. And then I said, for dinner, I'd want to stay at a place with a nice view. And I said, please be as detailed as possible. So you'll see in the response here what ChatGPT is doing. It is going back and forth. It made multiple calls to Expedia. And then it went to Open Table, and then it went back to Expedia. So as someone like I love to travel and I would spend so much time, when me and my wife would travel somewhere, especially in a different country, going over what can we do for this? Like, um, how can we plan a detailed itinerary? And I didn't like working with travel agents. So I've spent so much time, so many hours planning something. And I think this is a great way to do it with ChatGPT plugins. So let's see if ChatGPT kind of followed. So here we go. It gave different recommendations for hotel stays. It looks like some of these are pretty cheap too. So I don't know if it ended up doing nice hotels. I could say like, hey, make sure it's a 4-star hotel with a minimum rating of this, right? But I wanted to go a little faster. So you'll see here it gave 3 different recommendations for hotel stays. Pretty good. It gave 2 different recommendations in Florence for hotels or sorry, for reservations with a nice view. And then I can click those. I can open them up and you'll see here there it is, right? And then also it said, here's some adventurous activities to do in Florence, with links, with prices, and how long it takes as well. So it's pretty amazing, I'd say, right? So I like starting broad, enabling the correct plugins. So then you can then have this chat and you can go back to it later in the day, next week, while you're even on your trip and you can continue. So that's another thing we always talk people about plugin packs, which is, selecting the right 3 plugins and then training an expert chat. So this is someone now that if I wanted more details about this trip, I wouldn't start a new chat. I would go back into this because it's learning my preferences. It knows that I don't like seafood. I want to do something adventurous. I want a restaurant with a view. So I hope this was helpful. Mary, thank you for the recommendation to do something like this. All right. So if you enjoyed this, please go to youreverydayai.com. Sign up for our free daily newsletter. We have a guest almost every single day on our live stream where you can ask them questions, learn from them, listen to the podcast. So thank you all. And let me know, are you going to use ChatGPT to plan your next travel excursion? Let me know. Thanks.